But what's new with you, man? What's happening?
Well, I've been turning out some NBA draft pieces, including one today that just launched this morning that has state of Indiana implications, maybe not IU implications, but it's about the folly of passing on Jaden Ivey. If you look at it, Jim, the guys who fit Jaden Ivey's profile athletically, dynamically, it's a very, very short list. And you can't find anybody on it that didn't become an all-star. And if you're drafting in the NBA at the top of the draft, you're looking for all-stars. That's what you're hoping to get. I mean, you don't necessarily think, oh, this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. You're not looking for role players at the top of the draft. You're looking for all-stars. And that's, you look at it, you go back to Russell Westbrook, who he resembles greatly, became a 9-time All-NBA guy. Ja Morant, who is the most recent example of that sort of dynamism, a lot of similarity there. You're talking about a guy who's been in an all-star game, only been in the league 3 years, and got his team to the second round of the playoffs in his third year. Derrick Rose was MVP of the league. A little bit different because he's physically stronger and maybe more point guard oriented, but still that next level athleticism, that A++. Dwayne Wade, those guys all become stars. You can't find the guy who resembles Ivy in terms of college career and development and athletic profile that didn't become a star. And it's interesting to watch. You've got Jabari Smith. You've got Chet Holmgren, and you've got Paolo Banchero, and everybody's saying on the mock drafts they're going to go 1, 2, 3. And they're all terrific talents, and I'm not arguing against any of them, although I can find a flaw in all of them, and I can find some flaws in Jaden as well. The one who feels like the safest pick to me is the one that's being shoved to the side, and that's Jaden.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you now. And when you look at it, not only do they become stars, but like Ja Morant, the franchise, they change the franchise. They give them hope in life, and these are teams that haven't had that for a while, some of them. So, and that's what the draft is about. It's supposed to turn, get talent on teams that don't have that much. So it would be interesting to see will anyone dare take him in front of one of these other, what I call the big three.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, Jim. I mean, I've seen Fran Fraschilla starting to suggest that. He's done some interviews lately, and Fran's a good friend of mine. I just didn't happen to interview him for this article, although he certainly would have buttressed my point. He said he wouldn't be surprised to see him go off the board at number 2. There seems to be a building consensus that Jabari Smith will go 1 overall, and I understand it. I get it. He is a great shooter, and he's a big guy. So that's a hard combination to beat. I can make the case for and against all 4 players that we're talking about. I can make the case for and against. And the case against Jabari Smith for me would be that little bit of that I don't know exactly what I would call it, but that idea of dominance. I mean, he had some games where he was a dominant force, but a guy who's going to be the 1 overall pick, like, shouldn't he be doing that all the time? I brought that up with Bruce Pearl when I was writing an article back in January, early February. And I mentioned it to him, why isn't that there all the time? And he said to me that if you look at the big games, the really big games, he was always there for those. Alabama on the road, Kentucky, etc. And that not all held up until he completely disappeared in the NCAA tournament. It didn't hold up so well when they played Miami. So I'm not sure. Like I said, I can make a case for him and I can make a case against him. For him, he is a beautiful shooter, and he can get his shot off in tight space. And so that's a real plus. If you guard him tight, he can still get it off. And that's a real plus. And he is 6'10", 6'11", and he blocks shots, and he's a pretty, he's probably a A to A- athlete. So there's a lot to like about him. But we just had a comment pop up on the screen that's trying to separate Ja Morant from Jaden Ivey athletically. I'm sorry, that's not there. There's that separation. You can maybe separate them in terms of how you like the skill set. It's that sort of thing. You might think that Morant is more of a point guard, which he is. Coming out, he had a little bit more experience and a little bit more command, so I can get with that. But in terms of dynamism, no, there's no difference there. Ja Morant, Jaden Ivey, I mean, you run them through tests, and they're going to look exactly the same.
Then that leaves us with the Pacers, who are just outside of that, while everybody else is making their decision on who they're, and I don't want to call it the leftovers because you're getting a very high pick, but they get to wait to see who does what. And of course, there's no way that, I shouldn't say no way, but generally there's no way that Banchero and Smith, Holmgren and Ivy are going to be gone. But you look at different ones, and I'm looking at this is CBS. They've got Shaedon Sharpe at number 3, and then Benedict Mathurin at number 4. So leaving Chet Holmgren at 5.
Who has that?
This is CBS. I'm looking at CBS.
There has to be a name on it, because that's
Matt Norlander.
Oh, that is a Matt's a good guy. That's a strange one.
I've not seen one like this. That's why I'm like, wait a minute. I have not seen one like this at all. And I'm like, wow, that's different.
In my article, I pointed out that there was I believe it was from The Athletic, that actually had Jaden falling to 9, which just blew me away. For the Pacers, my concern is this. It's okay if you don't get one of the top 4. But if you can't get Keegan Murray at 6, I think at that point you're really getting punished. If the first 5 go and Keegan Murray is sitting there, I think it's fine. I love Keegan Murray as a Pacer. He's not the most dynamic guy, but he is going to score 20 points a game. I would bet he has multiple seasons as a pro in which he averages 20 points a game or more. That's my feeling about him. And I think if you can get that at number 6, you've gotten yourself a good player. But I have seen Murray increasingly going from the mock drafts 4 or 5. And that leaves you at number 6 with the idea, okay, what do you do now? If you haven't made a trade, do you take Shaedon Sharpe, and when you really don't know much about him other than what he looks like, in an empty gym? Who else is out there for you at that point? I'm not saying the guys who are there are not capable players or good prospects, but I'm saying that if Murray is off the board and the other 4 are off the board, at that point you're starting to, you're drafting guys who have bigger holes. I mean, AJ Griffin, the best shooter in the draft, the best shooter in the last several years of the draft. But, what else does he do? What else does he give you? He didn't give Duke much other than that. And that's a concern. I mentioned my concern, my sincere concern with Shaedon Sharpe. Didn't compete. I mean, he walked away from every competition that was available to him. Greg Doyle did a wonderful column in the Indianapolis Star this morning, and told me something I did not know. I mean, I knew about what Sharpe had done at Kentucky, or more accurately, what he had not done at Kentucky and what he declined to do at Kentucky. But I didn't realize that he'd also declined a shot to play in the U19s for Canada last summer. I mean, there's like no downside at all to that. You haven't played anybody, and here's a chance to play internationally. I can't remember where the games were, where he would have gotten to travel. He had gotten to travel internationally, go somewhere cool, hang out with people like Caleb Houston and try to build up his brand. and also to play for his country, and he didn't even do that. I mean, I just can't take that guy. I don't care if he came into my gym and he looked like Michael Jordan. I can't take a guy who doesn't want to play.
Or won't. Was there any reason ever given? Why didn't he play at Kentucky?
There was, and Kyle Tucker from The Athletic did a nice job reporting on this. It was his, I don't know what you call him, handler, whatever you want to call him. The guy who had been his AAU coach or whatever, wouldn't clear him to play, wouldn't allow him to play. The family wanted him to play. And the handler guy wouldn't let him go. And first of all, at some point, I'm 18 years old. I can make the decision about whether I want to play basketball on my own. I don't need to have somebody tell me that. I mean, I can see, okay, we don't want you to go to this camp. We don't want you to go play in this AAU tournament because it'll wear you out or whatever. But my goodness, to just say you're not going to play intercollegiate basketball and you're not going to play for your country and all the rest of that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's a terrible approach to development and to just wanting to be a competitor. So I think we're seeing teams starting to say, hey, does this guy want to even play? Does this guy want to play basketball? It's not just the media that's asking that question. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody and maybe even the Pacers says, there's so much ability there that I can't pass on the chance to have that blossom under our watch. That's very possible. And if you're at 6, the opportunity cost of taking someone like who's going to be outstanding is starting to diminish at that point. So I can understand if the Pacers say, I have to take the chance on this young man because what he shows from an athletic profile, what he shows from a skill profile, it's too much to pass up. But I just, if it's my team, I'm just saying I want somebody who wants to play. And I have seen absolutely zero evidence that this young man wants to play.